Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest Tune In Tuesday with Cicerone Press. I hope you didn't get caught out in the terrible weather this weekend and that you've had a good day, whatever you're up to. We're really excited to be joined today by Louise Johnstone, who is going to be sharing kind of her tales of running and mental health. And she joins us from Skye. So if we have any technical issues, we can just blame it on the distance, but yeah, hopefully it's all going to be fine. So I'll read a brief introduction about Louise so everyone knows who she is, but just so you know, if you have any questions for Louise as we're going along, you can send them to us on Facebook in the comments section. You can also ask them on Zoom here in the webinar, also email to live@cicerone.co.uk, or tweet them to us at Cicerone Press. So yeah, any questions you have, there's lots of ways to get in touch, and we will put them to Louise as we're going along or at the end, depending on what the question pertains to. So yeah, welcome Louise. Louise Johnstone is a Dundee-based personal trainer and endurance athlete who has spent her career focusing on improving the mental and physical health of women. In 2016, she ran the Marathon des Sables, raising over £5,000 for the Dundee Association for Mental Health, and she covered 154 miles over 6 days in gruelling conditions. 2021 will see Louise take on her biggest challenge to date, which is the 2021 Run North Sea. Involves 7 countries, 2 feet, and over 3,455 miles in approximately 100 days. And she is striving to engage further with the Dundee and Scottish communities through this and fundraising for the Scottish Association for Mental Health. So welcome, Louise.
Hi, Amy.
So many challenges. Yeah, you definitely keep busy.
Well, I think the best way to keep busy is through your challenges, isn't it? Just challenging yourself to try new experiences and create new memories, I think.
Yeah, and I suppose we'll probably talk about your challenges in detail later, touching on the Marathon des Sables and also your big challenge coming up, 2021 Run North Sea. But I thought it'd be good to start off by talking about your background and why running and mental health is so important to you and kind of how you got into running.
Okay, well, I guess running and mental health, they're never really two subjects I actually thought I'd ever be wanting to talk about or be involved in. If you throw back probably 10 years, they're not even subjects that would have entered my mind, really. I guess from a mental health perspective, I have had mental health challenges or illnesses dating back to kind of secondary school. So it's really featured as quite a big part of my life, on and off, over the years until now. Sometimes it's right at the forefront, it's really dominating my life. And at other times it kind of takes more of a backseat where I seem to be managing it pretty well with different strategies, and it's not so domineering in terms of the attention that's required. And that goes through peaks and troughs throughout life. And I guess, but that's kind of like life anyway, isn't it? Life goes through peaks and troughs. You have good times, you have bad times. But from a running perspective, I find this hilarious. I previously, when I was at school, was kind of a sports team player. So hockey. Latterly, when I was an adult, I was a rugby player. Running, distance running. Oh, that's like the worst thing ever. I mean, say that to a teams player. I mean, short, sharp runs, right? Maybe a bit, running a bit, sprinting a bit. And rinse and repeat that overall for however long you're on the pitch for. But actually in 2011, I believe it was, I picked up a long-term injury to a nerve in my leg through rugby. And at that time, actually, we didn't know if I was going to be able to be active again. So my world kind of came crashing down, because as you can imagine, activity, exercise, sport, it's my life, it's my professional life, but it's also at the time I hadn't really clicked these two together, but it was also a massive strategy for my mental health. but it's also like a social aspect. Like there's so much wrapped up in sport, exercise, and physical activity. You know, it's not just doing the exercise. It's not just the running. It's not just playing the sport. There's so much more. It's the teamwork. It's the challenge, the personal challenges to achieve something, or a skill acquisition, or the banter on a Tuesday night, for example. You know, there's so much more than just the exercise, if you like, or just going and lifting weights, or, you know, any of these things. And this injury almost put pay to this, in the sense that I couldn't run any short distances. Like I couldn't do any sprint work. I couldn't work out what sport or what activity could feature in my life that my leg would tolerate. And that's when actually I realised I could do steady running. My leg was okay with steady paced running. And well, that was a bit of a blow because, you know, distance running for a long time, that's yuck. Just for a laugh, my first blog was called I Hate Running. When I first started running, that's what I called it, because it was, I hated it. I could, for years, even now, I'm so hesitant to say that I like running, just in case I don't know what people might make me do.
Someone asked me once at parkrun, if you don't like it, why are you here? And I thought, wow, that's too philosophical for a Saturday morning. I can't answer that question. I don't know why I keep doing this. I don't particularly like it, but I run all the time. And yeah, I can't answer that at all.
It's amazing the impact that just completing a regular activity has on you. And it's almost like you fall into this rhythm and you just do it, you know. And I knew if I wanted to sustain doing distance running, to keep it as part of my life, as something that I could engage with on a regular basis, and to basically make me do it, I needed a big challenge. Now, at that point, I know myself. I know I work off big challenges. I work off setting big targets to kind of work towards. And I decided, I'd seen on the adventure show on TV, I'd seen the West Highland Way race. So that's a 95-mile race across the West Highland Way. And in fact, you cover it in one of your books, the West Highland Way. It's a walking book for you guys, I think is that's right. And amazing. So from Mulgai to Fort William, I decided that's what I was going to do. Before I could even run a mile in one go, I was going to run 95 miles across trail and all the hills, 15,000 feet of elevation, 35 hours. That's the cut-off mark for it. I was like, right, that's a big goal. I'm going to have to work at that. So that's the challenge. And that's when that's how I started running. Through injury, I kind of fell into it by accident. That's not quite so exciting as a story as a lot of people think it should be.
I think it's really great though to hear that. I guess when people come to running, they probably think of it firstly as exercise, and it's like that big, like kind of physical challenge to overcome. But it seems like it's as much a mental thing, and maybe setting yourself the huge challenges is your way of challenging yourself mentally as much as physically.
Yes, you've pretty much hit the nail on the head right there in that description. That was amazing. Yes, I think, and this is different for everybody, I think, but yeah, you're right. Most people think about running as an exercise, as something for weight loss, as something for toning, I think that's generally first and foremost what people think. And I would say most people go through, when you start running, most people will go through the phase where they dislike it. Some people don't ever grow out of that phase. And I think the beauty of running is that actually over time you start to learn more about it and about yourself, and actually you start to find the areas that are more suited to your style, whether that be going to park run every week. And that's fine. If that's what you want to do every week and just get around park run and have fun with that, that's awesome. For some people it's doing long distance. For some people it's the 10k or half marathon distance. There's different distances for everybody. But then you have road running and you have trail running. But then if we go totally left field, you also have obstacle racing, which involves a bit of running and broken up with the exercise. You have orienteering, which involves can be racing and running. You have groups, or you can do it individually, but you are always part of a community. Like, as soon as somebody classifies themselves as a runner, if somebody else is a runner, they'll be like, oh, what do you do? And it immediately starts a connection and a conversation. And all of a sudden, you're best friends. You know,
I think there's something
like,
really powerful as well about, you know, every time I set off to go for a run, I think I can't do it every single time. And then I can every single time, you know.
Yeah.
And there's something really powerful in having those mini wins throughout your week of achieving something that you didn't think was possible, whether that's on a tiny scale of going out in the rain or going a bit further or doing an extra lap, you know, whatever it is. I think that's what I like about running, is the confidence and the boost it gives you afterwards, rather than the actual activity, perhaps.
Yes, you know, and I think just what you're saying there is like, well, many wins is super important for sticking with any activity, right? That's just a must-have if you want to be able to consistently turn up and do something, yeah? And we would say that for any activity. It doesn't just have to be running, because obviously in this context we're talking about my challenges and their running challenges, but that can be anything, like the gym where you lift more weight. It could be, you know, a skill acquisition, you know, nailing down the skill or a part of the technique of running, like you're saying, or getting out in the rain, because I mean, well, actually I quite like running in the rain. I just hate the wind. So if I can conquer a wind-based run, I'm like, I am winning. I've won the world today. You know, or maybe it's encouraging somebody else to go out, and that's your win. You know, and I think, but I think that's also important in terms of achieving goals. You know, it helps us to set those small wins, and that's actually how all of a sudden you've achieved a massive goal, and you didn't even realise you were progressing so finely along, so amazingly well towards it. You know.
And I guess that's probably something you work on, you know, with your personal trainer stuff when you're working with people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you often, big goals are scary, you know, and they won't work for everybody, right? So you see where you want to get to. So you have like your A to B. A is where you start. Your B is the end result, where you want to get to, whether that be a finish line, whether that be completing your first 5K park run, even if it's a walk run, whether that be, I don't know, going, you know, joining your local running group, even, because that could be quite a challenge. That's quite intimidating, you know, to be able to do that. You know, going in front of all these people, because they might be better runners than you, and they might show you up to not be a runner, even though you are. Everybody that runs is a runner. That's it, full stop. And I think if you can make small goals along the way, so you break it up halfway, what would halfway between those two goals look like? And then you take that halfway point and you break that down in the first instance, and then you break it down from the halfway point to the end point, again in halfway. And then you just make smaller goals, and you put in as many small goals as you need to get to the next bit. It doesn't matter how many steps it takes. It's like it doesn't matter how fast you run a 5K. It's the same concept, right? Everybody in parkrun covers 5K. You've all done the same. The time generally is irrelevant unless you wanted to place first. So we all cross that same finish line. We all cover the same distance. We all did it that day, yeah? Like thousands of people on a Saturday morning, you're one of them. But it doesn't matter how long it took you, because, and just like a goal, it doesn't matter how many steps you take. If you achieve your goal, you still achieved your goal. And I think that's quite empowering. Many wins is the way forwards. Absolutely.
I think we might need to put that up somewhere, Hannah, like many wins. Little slogan. That's brilliant. Yeah, I suppose, so speaking of challenges and breaking things up, and you're saying that, you know, everyone will do these challenges. Not everyone will have run the Marathon des Sables, which you did in 2016. And, you know, for that you raised money for charity. And I wondered, like, how does that fit with your own mental health, in terms of, you know, it obviously helps the people who the charity money is provided for. But yeah, how does that help you?
Wow. In so many different ways. Like, so firstly, it acts as a motivator, because, you know, you're out there, you don't want to let these people down. These people, you've said you're going to raise this money, and to some degree there's an expectancy there. you know, outside of, for example, current climate, world-based events, you know, in terms of COVID. But like, there's that expectation that you will fulfill. Most people do fulfill their charity challenge, charity financial implications, if you like, you know. So there's an expectancy, which I guess gives you a little bit more of a commitment, like you buy in more in terms of perhaps sticking to it and pushing out a little bit further than maybe you would have before. It allows you to step outside of that comfort zone a little bit more. But not just that, you know, it's that idea that I guess giving back is such a big, it's kind of like, it feels a bit selfish because you feel so good for giving back and helping other people that it almost feels like you're just helping yourself rather than helping other people, you know? So it's like a little bit for yourself, but it's a little bit for other people. And I find that's kind of similar to how you feel about volunteering often. It helps you just as much as it helps the people that you're there to help. And I think, so that's like volunteering, fundraising. I think it's a really awesome way to give back to something you truly believe in, but also to feel better about yourself, feel good about something that you're doing, you know, and it also asks you to ask more of yourself, without doubt. It's amazing what you'll do when other people are relying on you, I think. Definitely I do more I do know I step over and above what I would ordinarily do or feel comfortable doing when I'm doing it for an external cause, you know. And I think, yeah, I've seen myself crying in events and being like, I don't know if I could keep going. I mean, the Marathon des Sables was one where I spent a lot of time crying. But I still, it's like, no, these people are reliant on me. Like the picture that you have up at the moment, the one on the left, that's me speaking to school. And I told all these kids I was going to finish it. And yet on day one, I rocked up and I looked at it and I thought, what have I done? You know, I was in hell. I was just like, what actual have I done? I'm way out of my depth here. And I was like, I can't let these kids down. And I didn't even, day one was a big kind of test. It was one of the worst days I had. And I just could not bring a single positive thought to mind that day. But all along I was like, can't let these kids down, can't let these kids down, can't let my sponsors down. I had a lot of kind of external business and company sponsors. They had bought into the idea that I could do this. You know, these people believed me and I just didn't get why. But I was like, but I can't stop. And then and just the huge magnitude of the race really had a massive impact. But all through that, it was the fact that I was fundraising and I'd spoken in these schools. And it just makes you push outside of that comfort zone, which was very uncomfortable. I have to say, hugely.
What, hotter than Scotland?
Hotter than Scotland? Oh, I don't even know what you're talking about. It's like the same environment. Oh my goodness. I tell you, night times was the same. During the night, you know, between kind of 3 and 5 was actually, that was the coldest time, because obviously all the temperatures had dropped off. So that was a time when actually I woke up more. I think quite a few people in the camp woke up due to the temperature drops overnight. So actually that was one consistency.
Is that one of the hardest things about the Marathon des Sables, the temperature change?
The temperature change. For me, the hardest thing was actually the psychological challenge, I have to say. You know, for the temperature changes, you can actually access heat chambers. For example, I use Napier University here in Scotland. I'm pretty certain there's a few kind of dotted around down south where you can access them. Having spoken to people obviously at the event, I know they used heat chambers as well. So you can adjust for the heat for the heat, and you do that in a couple of weeks before you go to the event. And that allows you to kind of acclimatise to a degree. Obviously, I'm Scottish, and I still think it took me another 3 or 4 days before when I got out there to acclimatise. Yeah, I've never been in heat like that. But what I would say is So the heat chambers, what I learned was that they couldn't acclimatise you to heat and humidity. So they had to do one or the other. So obviously we worked with the heat, but what I found was, I think it was I'd never been in humidity like that before, or lack of. You know, it was down around 4%. And I think that had quite a big impact on me, because I probably didn't know what to expect from that front. You know, there was lots of unexpected.
And it's called the Marathon des Sables, but actually it's a marathon per day, isn't it? It's not just a marathon.
Yes, it's yes, and some days it's more. So, and then one of the days is actually a double. What day? So there's a day where you do like 52 or 54, something like that, miles. So that's considered a long day. However, you do have overnight to complete that. So they give you, like, you can go through the night, which is obviously cooler, which helps massively. And they have bivouacs set up as checkpoints along the route. So you can actually, if your chosen way of strategizing that is to sleep at certain checkpoints, say for small amounts of time, then get up and go, then you can do that. But perhaps other people, what they would do is they would go straight through. So they would do the hard stuff during the day, but they would also just absolutely zoom on during the night and get to as close to the finish as they could before the heat came up again, basically.
How did you train for that beyond the heat chambers and the acclimatization?
Okay, I actually didn't train very well for it because I actually got a cancellation spot. So this was never on the cards for the year that I did it. So I got 6 months with which to prepare, fundraise, raise the money to pay for it, to fundraise for my charity. I was also working full-time, studying full-time. So my training was not what I would describe as ideal. So I wouldn't encourage anybody to copy what I did that year. But I was lucky in the terms of I had a good base to pull from, you know, and that got me through it. But some of the key things that I did do was go perhaps and train on the sand dunes. So we have some good sand dunes at Lunan Bay, which is about 50 miles from where I stay, where I live. And I would go there with a friend she was really good actually. She was like, come on Louise, get up that hill. And she would chase me up the hill to make me keep going, you know, and just do hill reps on sand. And now anybody who runs on sand knows it's just torture because you go nowhere, you know. So training on sand dunes, but also you could, if you think about how sand works and moves, you could train on loose gravel because again, it moves, you know, you're looking for the same consistency. So I would go up the Sidlaws, which is my local hills out the back of Dundee, and I would just train on the mud in winter. And again, that's got that loose consistency, constantly moving. It can be quite tough to get your footing get a grip underfoot. And that was some of the ways I trained for it. Having, in hindsight, I wish I had done more walking, you know, training to walk with the backpack because the pack was heavy. And also just, I wish I'd used poles. I don't use poles for walking or running. And so therefore I took that with me and I decided that obviously at this late stage, it wouldn't be good to add that in as something new to try and get a handle on at this short time in terms of getting to the event, especially when I was trying to juggle so many other kind of demands on my time. And so, but definitely poles was one that I wish I had taken forwards because obviously they take pressure off your body to some extent and they relieve the pressure on your joints and they just make it easier. You know, they reduce the load in that way. And definitely more walking. I walk a lot for just to and from work. I tend to use active transport as it were. So I walk to and from work. I walk around work. I'm on my feet all day. I carry a backpack to and from work, quite a heavy one. So I was like, you know, I would cover 8 to 10 miles every day, just going to work and to and from work. So I was like, right, that'll do, carrying a backpack. But I really should have featured in more. I didn't train for the fact that I might not be able to run at all. You know, I didn't put a backup plan in place and make sure I was okay for that too, because running and walking just place so many different demands on the body. So the Marathon des Sables, you know, there's some guys who actually walk the majority of it and run a small section of it. And it's totally completable, but you have to stay ahead of the camel. So you're chased at the back by the camel, right? If the camel overtakes you, you're done that's you done. You're out of the event. So as long as you can stay in front of the camel, you're winning.
That sounds like a euphemism for life. Just make sure you stay in front of the camel.
I know, absolutely. It's great.
I kind of want to ask you what you've learned from the Marathon des Sables that you're then taking forward into your 2021 Run North Sea. But before we get to that, could you explain or talk to us about this photo?
This is the best. I love this photo. This is, without doubt, my favourite photo from the Marathon des Sables. So every day, we could only send one email home a day, okay? And that was if you made it to the email tent at the end of the day. Sometimes you had to choose, do I go to the blister tent or do I go to the email tent? You know, blister tent, usually one out. But what you could get every day was people could send emails back to the organisers for you, and I would get, and basically I became known in my tent, because you stayed in a tent, well, a bivouac, 6 other people, and I became known for getting War and Peace every day. So basically I got so many messages, everybody would take the mickey out of me, because I would get like this huge bundle of messages every day to read at the end of the day, which was absolutely amazing. Like, I say it with jest, absolutely. War and Peace, great, because I had so many people sending me messages. Now, one of these was from my mate G. Now, he knew we were quite alike, and he would send me like a rhyme, he would send me a song, he would send me an activity, and sometimes he would send me some motivational words, right? So the day of this run, of this day, whatever it was, he had said, Louise, you've got to singing in the rain, in the desert, and you must sing it aloud every time you go through a checkpoint. And so what I did was, I was like, how can I show them that I'm doing this? And obviously in Singing in the Rain, they jump up and they do the whole heel click, right? This was it. But what I was walking up to the photographer in front of me, and I was like, right, are you ready? You better get this first time, because I'm only doing it once. I can only jump off the sand once. And I was like, 3, 2, go. And honestly, big heel click. And he said he'd got it amazing. Like, this is, and to me, this just makes me chuckle, because it's one of those laughable moments that you just find to find some, I don't know, comedy and laughter in such a difficult situation. Because actually, I had swelling kind of just under, so you can see where I've got the gaiters on, just under the gaiters, I had massive ankles. So for some reason, which we couldn't pinpoint, I suffered from really bad fluid around my ankles, which was causing me huge pain in my feet, and obviously in my legs, just from the pressure. And honestly, I got to every checkpoint and I had to sit down for about 20 minutes to half an hour at every checkpoint with my feet up to wait for the fluid to subside so I could then carry on. And I would cry at most checkpoints because it was so sore. But these little like rhymes and like challenges, they brought such laughter to a day. It was hilarious. Another day he told me I had to sing I Will Walk 500 Miles. And it was just funny. It's just a comedy moment, and it's captured perfectly by the camera right there. It's just amazing.
I think what's really coming across with all of your challenges is the importance of community, and like having people to support you. Because I imagine it sounds like a really grueling trip, and that sounds horrific with the fluid. But thinking like how much worse it could have been if you hadn't had all those people supporting you.
Absolutely. When you said to me, when you mentioned just a second before you asked about this photo, you said, I want to ask you what you've learned from this that you take forward to the 2021 Run North Sea. And having a team and having support or community behind you, so important. Now that could be as much as, I would definitely say that could be as much as 1 or 2 people, but it could also be huge. For example, in the Marathon des Sables, you probably can't see from this picture, but you have your names on the numbers. What they get you to do is put your numbers on your front, but also a number on your back. And you can see from the guys behind me, we've all got them. And if anybody could see your head going down, or if they could see you sitting at the side, they'd say your name. Now, obviously, what's the first thing you do when somebody says your name? You lift your head. But as soon as you lift your head, that immediately changes your posture, right? From being down here in the dumps to up and uplifted. And immediately your chest is open, your eyes are up, and somebody has said your name. They're particularly addressing you. So, you know, there was over 1,000 people there in that event, and I only knew I knew one person from previously, because I'd spoken to her to get some advice, and I knew I didn't even know them, but I had 6 people in my tent. You know, they were my team for the week, if you like. But also they could diminish any day. I could get back and somebody could be missing, because you didn't know if nobody was coming back. They just got removed. But also having that community at home and getting those messages every day, you know, sometimes they'd make me cry, sometimes they'd make me laugh, but I knew they were there. And having people who bought into the challenge or my challenge or me doing it, you know, by backing me from a sponsorship perspective, be that from a business helping the actual event happen for me, or whether that was sponsoring me so that the money went to the charity, either way, having that behind you and being part of a bigger community is so important, to know that you're not on your own, you know, and all those 1,000 people, they're all going through the same struggles as you. You might not know each other, but you're together, you know, and you're all in it together, and it doesn't matter what level you're at, it's just getting to the end of each day.
And the mental resilience is so much more important in these longer, tougher challenges, because you can't just grit your teeth and get through it in a couple of hours. You know, when you're out doing something, I mean, when you do Run North Sea, how long is that going to take you? You're going to have to be so mentally tough, or at least if you're not tough all the time, to just be resilient so that you can get through the lower bits when you're out doing something like that for such a long period. Yeah,
I think, yes, you need mental toughness, but you also need resilience. And I would actually say it's all relative, because for some people 5k is really long, you know, and for other people it's a multi-day endurance event. For some people it's a marathon. You know, I do think it's all relevant, and I think we all face challenges within these, and I think running, or mainly any kind of consistently, an event where you have to apply yourself consistently, like a kind of endurance event, whatever that looks like for that person, excuse me, does require you to dig deep and be able to see beyond the initial challenge, you know, the initial obstacles that you overcome on maybe an hourly basis or a minute basis. And often those challenges come from inside our own heads, telling us we can't do it. Or if this is the same in the next mile, how do I keep going? Or I can't run another step, I have to walk. You know, you have to be able to turn that around and say, well, that's okay, but I'm still moving forwards. I'm still moving towards the end goal. Say, for example, whether it's 5k or whether it's a race line or whether it's completing a multi-day event, I'm still moving towards the end of the day or whatever that is. You know, it's still a step. It's still a step towards that mini goal. It's a step forwards compared to where I was, you know, and I think, and that's where maybe some growth mindset comes in. So adding to, which is alongside resilience and mental toughness. I think a lot of people would describe running particularly as something that develops them mentally as well and really challenges them mentally, because I think, you know, whether, again, triathlon, for example, you know, that requires mental toughness. You know, you've got 3 events to try and get through there, and one of them, most people will have 1 week event there. So it's like, how do you overcome that? How do you turn the obstacles that you face within that, be it within your own head or physically, how do you turn those into wins? You know, how do you see everything that's happening as a win rather than something that's pulling you backwards? It's right, how's this taking me forwards, you know, compared to where I was? How am I winning this compared to what I knew or thought I could do before? I hope that answers your question. Sorry, I think I might have gone off target a little bit there.
No, I think that was brilliant. I think we've kind of like touched on it, but I think we should move to talk about your 2021 Run North Sea Challenge.
Yes.
But just before we do, for the audience, we're running a 25% discount on printed books for our fast packing, our running in Chamonix, and fell and trail running in the Lake District, and fell and trail running in the Yorkshire Dales. I think I've got those titles right, Hannah.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you search on the Cicerone website for those things, you'll find them. So it's those 4 books, 25% off on those if you're inspired by Louise's running stories. And yeah, the code is NorthSea25, all lowercase. So NorthSea25. Use that. It's also free UK postage on all deliveries. So yes, if you're inspired.
We don't have a guidebook that covers the entire North Sea running challenge, because it would be an awful lot of pages.
It would be. It's the longest European cycle ride.
So I'll pop up a map now. There we go. There it is.
There we go.
So
That's it.
Louise, there it is.
Wow. That's quite scary now that you put that up. Obviously, I have seen the map before.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like why did you pick this particular route? And why have you chosen that challenge for yourself?
Again, this is one of those this should be a much more exciting story than it really is. Welcome to real life, guys. It's so basically I was cycling from St Andrews. I think actually it wasn't long after the Marathon de Sables. I was cycling back from St Andrews to Dundee, and I saw this North Sea cycle route, this map on a lamppost on the cycle route, and I was like, oh, what is this? So I stopped, and it was the North Sea cycle route, and I was like looking around it, and I thought, God, that looks amazing, and I'd never heard of it before, and I just decided I want to run it. That was it. I literally, that is just how my head works. I'm like, I see something, and the idea is there instantly. I'm not a massive cyclist. I do cycle as cross training, and I cycle, maybe as a bit of active transport, and I enjoy cycling. But running's would be the first one now, in spite of me starting off with a I hate running blog. So that's basically why I chose it, just because I saw it and I decided this needed to be run. I didn't know if somebody else had done it, and it didn't matter to me whether somebody else had or hadn't, run it or cycled it wholly or whatever anybody else had done. It was just like, this is a huge challenge for me, and this is perhaps the next level for me to get to fundraise and raise much more about the conversation around mental health, to also engage with people. Some of these ideas weren't there in the initial stages. Some of I knew that it would be to fundraise for mental health, because that's what I advocate for, mental health conversation, about speaking about mental health, about letting other people know that it's not this, doesn't need to be this thing that's all cloak and dagger anymore. That's kind of what I advocate for now. So it was always going to be for mental health if I do a charity event. And then as I thought about how I wanted this challenge to look, I realised, actually, do you know what? I want people to come and join me on the route. I want them to be able to walk, run, cycle, skate, rollerblade, however you want. Somebody even said, I might come with you on a Sedgway. All right then. Anything that gets people to come out and meet me on the route while I'm running. They don't have to run at my pace, because I want to say hi and have a word with just about as many people as I can on that route. And whether it's just because they wanted to come and ask me something, or whether it's because they want to tell me about something, their own experience about mental health, or their own experience of how exercise and physical activity has helped them and what differences it's made to their life, anything like that, to be able to come out and highlight the positive impacts of physical activity, exercise and sport on mental health is such a vital one for me. It's one that, I live every day, and I have done since I was younger. And it wasn't until I started actually speaking about my own mental health and started processing some of the links that I had unconsciously made within my life, my strategies, that I realised, actually, this is a big deal for me. And I already do this through my professional job, and I want to do it more I want to talk real life on a personal level too.
And mental health is one of those things where people talk about it as if it's something that some people have and other people don't have. And that can be quite frustrating, because actually it's something that we all need to take care of our mental health, and everybody has mental health in the same way they have physical health.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be stigmatized for having a cold or having
No.
broken your leg. You know, it wouldn't be a pull yourself together or think more positively about your broken leg. But there is still an awful lot of stigma if you're having a tough time mentally.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I wholly believe we have jumped forward. You know, in 2017, the year after the Marathon des Sables, I actually set up Dundee Mental Health Awareness Week, Heart to Heart. It was meant to be my last kind of finale. I wasn't going to be doing any more fundraising, and I wanted to kind of still help give a platform to mental health conversation. And it's like you say, we're talking about mental health here. So everybody has mental health, not everybody has a mental illness. And that's okay. Just like not everybody breaks their leg. You know, we don't look upon them poorly. Oh, geez, you broke your leg. That puts you in a whole other group of people. You know, it's just daft. And I think in this day and age, we have jumped forward massively. That year that I set up Heart to Heart was a year that there was a lot of focus used, especially by the Royals, on mental health conversation, which was great to see. You know, Heart to Heart featured that year in amongst that conversation. And I like to think we had a big impact in Dundee. It was the city's own mental health awareness week to put a spotlight on the great stuff that goes on in the city, but also to give it an identity, as in we need to do something specific for Dundee. It doesn't need to just fall into the general idea of a mental health awareness week or month. But also I think, unfortunately, it's come around because of this, but you know, lockdown for a lot of people raised questions over how they were coping, you know, with this lockdown, because lockdown actually pushed on to just about everybody what it's like to have a mental illness. I'm not saying everybody, and it's very much a generalisation, but lots of people who never thought they would struggle with mental health perhaps did during lockdown. You know, you were socially isolated, you didn't have people you could reach upon quite so easily. And I think lots of things that we thought of as negative, for example, social media came into its own. It allowed us to stay connected. So it let us see that actually there is some positives in social media, you know, and actually more people are now have had an experience of what it's like to be isolated, to not be free from to be able to be physically active, to not be able to make those choices, you know, very restricted. It's all the things that you tell people with a mental illness not to do, essentially, was part of lockdown. You know, and we're seeing more and more reports about how people are struggling. You know, for example, postnatal depression has had a bit of a spike. A lot of new mums left isolated, not having that support network, which is vitally important after the baby arrives. You know, there's a lot of other kind of mental illnesses have spiked as well. A lot of anxiety, naturally, given the circumstances that we're living in at the moment, the uncertainty. I mean, that's anxiety inducing just on a general level, you know, never mind if you actually have anxiety as well.
I think what we have seen, though, hopefully, is when people have had fewer options, more people have been enjoying going out for a walk or going out for a run, and really discovering the benefits to mental health for themselves, whereas they might have otherwise been distracted by going to the pub or going to the gym or, you know, different things.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think, you know, and I think that's important, is that actually we're talking about loads more people have jumped back on their bikes than when they haven't done that in years. Lots more people were going out for walks, you know, and in some contexts you could see people complaining because there were so many more people out there, you know, taking up their run routes and up their walking routes, and it's like, oh, that's where I usually go, but everybody else is there, you know. And it's like, for me, it's a case of I don't care. I just want as many people as possible to be physically active, because not only are the benefits physical, but they're also so ingrained in us mentally, you know. So like they boost our self-esteem, they boost our confidence, they kind of give us, you know, you know, if you can acquire a new skill within physical activity, exercise, you know, sport, whatever that is, that builds your confidence, and it shows you that you can still do things. You know, to be able to perhaps join a team, that's intimidating. Again, that's showing that you're capable in social situations. If you perhaps are socially awkward or have anxiety in a social situation, and it's well documented how physical activity, exercise or sport can help us in different ways for our mental health. But also, on one side, what it does is it allows us to, it doesn't change why you have that condition, you know, it doesn't change the issue as it were, but what it helps you do is to cope. It helps us to distract. You know, how many times have you said, I need to go to the gym, or I need to go run for me time, I need time to switch off? That's amazing. You know, and coming back to what you were saying before, earlier on when we were chatting about, actually, it's much more. So if you go for a run, for me, it's not about the running. It gives me access to a whole other world that maybe I wouldn't access if I wasn't active. You know, getting into nature, being, I mean, I've been complaining a little bit about the Scottish weather recently. I don't like, it sounds like it's the same down in England with the whole downpours and stuff. And it's blowing an absolute hoolie outside in the sky right now. But without that weather, we don't get the amazing scenery that we have in this country. You know, we need some of that. And being active allows you to go out and access that to some degree, whether that's walking, running, cycling, you know, with people or on your own. You also get to be present in nature, you know, seeing otters in real life, which I did for the first time yesterday. I just want to tell everybody, right? Otters, whether it's seeing birds of prey. I mean, I get excited when I see deer on the hill. I sometimes get excited when there's sheep as well, but that's a whole other conversation. So, you know, it's about being part of that, and it's about feeling, sometimes it's seeing that actually there's so much, there's bigger things out there sometimes. And that's not to be dismissive. It just means sometimes it lets us step outside ourselves for a little while, outside of our heads, feel accomplished, you know, whether it's climbing that Munro even, you know, maybe you set your sights on climbing a Munro, which you guys have tons of books about. Maybe that's your goal and your challenge. Maybe it's just going to your local park and accessing those local parks and green space. You know, it really does not matter what gets you out there to be more active. What matters is you've taken that step and that decision to include activity in whatever form that looks like. Swimming, it could be swimming, it could be yoga, you know, Pilates, it could be classes, it could be a team sport, it could be an individual sport. All it has to do is be something that you enjoy and have fun at, because the more you have fun at it and get out there and do it and feel like you can do it even a little bit and add more to it, the more you're likely to stick with it. So the first important thing of any decision in taking up activity is do you enjoy it? And I know at the start we kind of spoke about how much we dislike running. But we kind of highlighted that there's another reason for going out there. But you know, like activity and sport and getting out there, it's so much more than the activity itself.
You mentioned there as well how kind of lockdown has changed the way that people are interacting with sport and, you know, getting outside more. But I know that your plans for this have been interrupted by the pandemic. Yeah. Like, how, I feel like you're the sort of person, as you've been saying, like you'll turn it into something positive. So how have you done that? And yeah, what impact has it had on your plans? Yeah,
so I guess the talk around the lockdown started coming in a few weeks before I was due to leave. So I was due to leave on the 2nd of May this year. That was a Saturday. And I was all still geared to go because, you know, initially when we were all talking about COVID and coronavirus, it was still very much changing, very quickly on a day-to-day basis in different countries. So it was still very much like, wow, I don't know if this is going to have an impact, you know, because it was just changing so fast every single day. You never knew what information was going to come out. Some countries were going into lockdown, then some weren't, and it was just like, what's happening? So initially it was still open, and then myself and I have 2 people who helped me organise this, 2 friends. They've been amazing. They helped me to step back and just have a look at the whole thing, and we decided postpone it, to 2021. And I believe I'll literally leave practically, it's the 1st or the 2nd next year. So it's pretty much practically the same date on a Saturday in a year's time. Well, less than a year now. And I was disappointed, and I think that's okay. It's okay to acknowledge those disappointing feelings and give it its space. But actually, do you know what? I just saw it as an opportunity to actually reach more people, have more conversations with people, to connect with more people, because that's what it's all about. Because the biggest thing for me is about having more conversations around mental health. And if I've got a whole extra year to do that, then I'm ticking that box straight away. And it's not just a tick box and exercise, but it allows me to do that, and it also allows me to bring that focus back on physical activity and exercise, hopefully have more people learn about this challenge, come out at whatever spot they feature on, no matter what your country or where you are, if you want to come and meet me on the day, because the route's all planned out. I've literally been able to take it from this year, transport it into next year, because I was ready to go, and just rinse and repeat it for next year. So I know where I'm going to be on what days, and I guess that was the benefit of being organised this year, is that I can do that. And now I'm hoping this year can be about talks, going into more schools, getting schools involved, doing their own mini Run North Sea, getting businesses involved, so that actually we're impacted on workplace mental health conversation, because that's the difficult one. That's very difficult both for staff, employees, but also for the employers. And I can see that that's a balancing act. We can blame one side or the other, but that's not helpful. I think getting in there and having the conversation and opening things up a little bit about what the barriers are to the conversation from both sides, really getting in there and helping people facilitate that, perhaps through the vehicle of a physical activity challenge, might be the way forwards, and I'm just all about speaking with more people. I just love hearing people's stories. It's so humbling and inspiring, people ask me what inspires me, who inspires me, and do you know what? It comes back to the people I meet every day, the kids I meet, my clients, anybody who's trying to achieve something and is willing to put it out there quietly on the down low, or even big vocally. I respect that. It's hard to put yourself out there, to step outside your comfort zone. It's hard to put yourself out there and have a conversation that not many people want to have yet, and I totally respect that. And anybody that's trying to make themselves better, whether it's mentally or physically, I respect that. And I know that I can appreciate the hard work that goes into that. And those stories come to me when I'm taking on my challenge, and they really make me want to be better and do more and share that story with other people and just show what's possible. Because the only barrier we have are the expectations or perceptions we have of our own abilities. That's the only barriers that we have. We create our own kind of fencing, if you like. And if we could just open a gate, the possibilities are endless.
We'll totally have to have you back. Well, when you finished Run North Sea, we want to hear about it. But I think also me and Amy were discussing that we think that, maybe on a Monday morning we can have 5 minutes with Louise, just to pep us up, ready for the week.
I could do that, no problem.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. Yeah, and I think it's just so lovely to hear you talk about just turning every negative thing into something positive, and that's your mindset. Yeah,
I mean, I would like to just add that, I've not always been like this. I've not always had this mindset. It's taken something that it's really taken a lot of work to do to get to this point, and it doesn't always work. I'm not always positive. I do have a lot of energy. I just love exercise and sport and talking about it, obviously, because of my personal and professional experiences. But it doesn't mean I'm like this all the time. So I just want to add that in, because some people can think, well, that's easy for you, but it generally isn't. I still have my challenges with mental illness. I still have days where I struggle to get out of bed. And I sometimes just say, right, okay, let's just you know, give myself a step back a little bit and give myself the room to have that day or that hour or whatever I need. You know, I change my expectations for that day, and I think it's important that we're flexible, because for some people with mental illness, opening the curtains is the win for the day, or getting out of bed and making a cup of tea, that's the challenge and the win for the day, and that's okay. You know, it's not about our challenges and what we achieve. It's not about what it looks like to anybody else, or it's not what it is compared to anybody else. It's absolutely what it has to be for us in our lives, you know. And I think that's super important. Is, you know, comparison is really a joy killer. It takes away our sense of achievement and our worthiness, and all these, it undermines us. And I think it's something that definitely we need to stop more, because so many of us do it, and we do it unconsciously. I do it. I even do it when I rock up to events. I'm like, what am I doing here? These guys all know what they're doing. They're all wearing the right clothes. They're all talking to each other, so they must know each other. What am I doing here? You know, and I get it. It's hard, but it's reinforcing yourself. It's constantly reminding yourself, no, that's not helpful. Don't do that. Step away. You know, distract yourself from that. So I think being realistic about ourselves and our own lives and what's possible in that moment and at that time, which looks different in every day, every month, every week, that's okay. You know, it changes shapes and sizes all the time.
I think for me, that's why I think I find you so inspiring rather than irritating, is because it comes from a very genuine place. It doesn't feel disingenuous. It doesn't feel like you're just trying to put a nice, shiny, happy front on things. It feels genuinely very positive, and from the heart. And it's so lovely to hear you speak about things, because the passion that it just pours out, and somehow we just feel uplifted by it. It's lovely. It's really, really nice to talk to you because of that.
Thanks so much. That's so lovely. Oh, I feel like I want like a group hug right now.
I think, yeah, unfortunately we're pretty much out of time, but just as a final quick question, you know, we do have some very keen adventurers in our Cicerone customers, but you know, there might also be people who haven't done a big challenge like this. So, you know, what advice would you give to people in terms of setting out on their next challenge? You know, maybe they've been in lockdown and haven't been out to do that sort of thing.
Okay, probably two things, right? So firstly, whatever first comes to your mind about what you would like to do, don't shut that thought down. Don't follow up with, but I can't do that, right? Often something that I find comes through a lot as a personal trainer is that people will say, they'll tell me what they think they can achieve, right? That's not always what we want to do. That's two different questions, yeah? It's, what do you want to do? That's your first question. What would you like to be able to do? That's your goal. Yeah, and the second thing is work on your mindset. Because whatever you believe you can do, you will find a way. No matter what anybody else says to you, no matter what you sometimes doubt, you know, when you have ups and downs, peaks and troughs, your mindset is hugely determinant on whether you will proceed or progress or move forwards. You know, it's a bit like the analogy of water. Water will always find a way. Be like water.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, unfortunately, I think we're going to have to leave it there. But Louise, thank you so much for coming to talk to us.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been so inspiring. And if people want to find out about, you know, where you're going to be on your 2021 Run North Sea route, where can they find more information about that?
There's two probably pages that you can jump onto. So if you're on Instagram, it's SilverFoxM3H. And if you're on Facebook, it's Louise Johnstone Running and Event Adventures.
Perfect. And we'll make sure to link those.
Thank you.
We can, yeah. So thank you so much, Louise.
Thank you.
Thank you. And promise us you'll come back and talk to us when you're finished.
I'm right there.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so thank you, Louise. Thank you to everyone who's joined us this evening for our latest Tune In Tuesday Cicerone Live event. You can find out more about upcoming events on cicerone.co.uk/events. We've got one next week and the following week, so you can find out plenty of information about those there. Also sign up for our newsletter and join our Facebook group, Cicerone Connect, which is a really lovely community where people are sharing ideas and questions, and it's just nice to kind of connect with people on there. So yeah, and we'll also put the video up on YouTube kind of by the end of the week. So if you want to share this around with anyone, you can do that then. So yeah, so thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully see you again sometime soon.